Hey guys, today we're going to take a look at some trigonometry for our first trig lesson. Now you will notice that most of the handout is already filled out, and that is because, as seems to be my usual process for these videos this year, I messed it up really bad. So, this is my second time through. I should be really good at it. But anyway, to begin with, what we're going to look at is what we call primary trig ratios. This is what we may have or probably called last year SOHCAHTOA. Okay? It is important to understand. You can see I already checked these off when I went through it the last time, but it's important to realize this will only work with right angle triangles. If it's not a right angle triangle, you cannot use primary trig ratios. Secondly, your calculator, make sure that it says degrees. If it says degrees or D, it will work fine. If it says rad, grad, or has an R or a G, it will give you the wrong answers every time you use it. So don't double check that every time. I'll try and remind you whenever I can, but inevitably somebody always messes up on a test, and it's unfortunate. So please double check every time. So we're going to label the three sides, which I'll go over in a minute. We've got the hypotenuse, the opposite, and the adjacent. From that, you're going to choose the two sides. You'll be involving two sides. You're going to, based on that, you're going to decide whether to use SO, CA, or TOA, sine, cos, or tos, or tos, sine, cos, or tan. And then you'll only have one variable missing. If you have more than one variable missing at this point, you have messed up and you'll have to do something else. You should never, ever, ever be using the 90 degrees in your calculation. Do not use the 90 degrees. If you're using the 90 degrees, you're doing it wrong, okay? So, what we're going to do here, first of all, you can see I drew a picture of myself. It looks exactly like me, spitting image, and we're going to talk about the angle of elevation here. So if I'm looking up at an angle of elevation, this line right here, this line right there, is a perfectly horizontal line. The angle that is formed by going up from that line to my line of sight, that is my angle of elevation. The angle of depression is exactly the same idea. You can see somebody looking down at what is clearly a cat. It's a perfect, I do feel like it's missing there we go. Get some whiskers. There we go. I knew I had something left to draw on this. Anyway, there we go. So the angle of depression, we start with that horizontal line, perfectly horizontal line. We go down from that line to the line of sight. This creates the angle of depression. Okay, so the only difference between the two, one goes up, one goes down, but we always start with that horizontal line. Okay, so we're out flying a kite. We have 150 meters on our kite string, and we estimate that the angle of elevation creates a 20-degree angle. So we're going to try and find the height of the kite. You can see I've already done it. So let me walk you through with our diagram first. We start with our diagram. If it doesn't give you a diagram, before you do anything else, draw a diagram. It'll help you figure out what you're doing, even if you have no idea what you're doing. Sometimes you can, figure it out using the diagram, and even if you can't, it's always good for part marks anyway. But I really, really want to emphasize, draw the diagram if there isn't one for you. Fortunately, we have one here, okay? And the first thing you should do is I like to put my X. You can see I put an X right here. There it is. There's my X. I put it at what I'm looking for. So in this case, I was saying, what is the height of the kite? And that does rhyme. So what's the distance from the height, or from the kite to the ground? And so we called that X. From there, you're going to label your H, A, and O. I always start with the H, okay? I start with the H because it's the easiest one to do. You just say, well, what's the longest side? It's across from that 90-degree angle. I've kind of scribbled over that 90-degree angle. If I mess this video up and do another version, there's not going to be anything left except a rainbow. But anyway, so we start with the H. It's the longest side. It's across from the right angle. I like to do the adjacent side next. You can see I've got my adjacent side right here. Okay. You remember which one's adjacent because it's the one that is not the hypotenuse that is touching the angle. So it's using the hypotenuse and the adjacent, you sandwich the angle in there. It's adjacent. If you say somebody's sitting adjacent to you, they're sitting beside you. It's right there. But if they're sitting opposite from you, they're all the way across looking at you just like the opposite side is. Okay. So once we've labeled our 3 sides, we have to say which 3 are we dealing with? Well, in this case, we are dealing with H because we have H. And the one that people often mess up on is O. We are dealing with the O because we're looking for the O. We don't have the O, but we're looking for it. You're always going to say that you're dealing with the side you're looking for. Okay? So, we're dealing with O. We're dealing with H. So we look at the word SOHCAHTOA, and you can see I've even already circled it. We want the one that has the O and the H. So we're dealing with sine. Okay, so we write out our formula, which is sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. You can just write O over H. You don't have to write op or over hype. You don't have to write opposite over hypotenuse. I like to write the short forms without, I don't like to do the O and H because the O looks like a 0, but it doesn't really make a difference whatsoever. So you sub in what you know. So we knew that theta was 20. We knew the angle was 20 degrees. So we replace our theta with 20. We replace our opposite with the x because that's where the x was, and then we said the hypotenuse was 150. From there, what we're doing is multiplying both sides by 150. But you don't even actually have to remember that. You can just remember the bottom of the fraction goes up to the top of the other one. However you like to remember it, it doesn't matter. Okay? There's only a couple different types of questions we can have in trigonometry. This is the most common, probably. Maybe not. Regardless, you take that 150, you stick it up with the sine 20, we get x equals 150 sine 20, and you just type it into your calculator. I want you to get your calculator out and try it. Make sure you can get 51.3. You might feel silly doing it right now watching a video, but you should try it because if you can't get that number, you need to tell me at the beginning of class and we can figure out your calculator together. Every calculator is different. Some are better than others. They all work, but sometimes it's complicated to type it in. But anyway, we have 51.3, which means the kite is 51.3 off the ground. Okay. All right, so let's try practice number 1 here. Thomas has found his turtle at the bottom of a cliff. He estimates that he is 20 feet horizontal from his turtle with an angle of 30 degrees towards his turtle. How deep is the cliff? Okay, so here's our diagram. So again, we're going to label it. So it says 20 feet horizontal from his turtle. So remember, horizontal, think of a horizon. That's just side to side. So we've got 20 feet right there. And then it said, what did it say? It said an angle of 30 degrees towards his turtle. That was our angle of depression. So we had 30 degrees right there. Okay. And the question is, how deep is the cliff? So we are looking for, it's more obvious here. Look, we want that distance right there, but we want it on our triangle. So we say, well, we want that side right there because that's going to be the same. Okay. So now we label H. I like to label H first. I said that before. It's the longest side, across from the 90 degrees. Now I like to label adjacent. You can label the opposite first. Doesn't make a difference. But adjacent is touching the angle. So it's that one. X is our opposite. And then we just say, okay, which two are we dealing with? Well, we have A, and we're looking for O. So those are the two we're dealing with. We want O and A. I'm actually going to jump up to the last question because I don't want to have to write out SOHCAHTOA every single time. And we say which one has O and A. Well, there's the O, there's the A. So we want tan in this case. So we say tan theta is equal to, let me zoom in so I can do it neater, opposite over adjacent. Again, you can just write O and A. It doesn't make a difference. And we sub in what we know. So tan 30 is equal to, let me just jump over to the diagram. So I had O as x and A is 20. X over 20. So once again, I'm just going to multiply both sides by 20, so I get that x is equal to 20 tan 30. And again, you're just going to punch it into your calculator. And again, I really, really, really encourage you to actually try this on your calculator right now, just to make sure that you can get the answer that I get, which is 11.54. We'll just label or round to 11.5, and that was in feet. Okay. Again, if you can't get that number, if you're doing it and you're getting a different number, just make sure you tell me in class, because I'm very good with calculators, but they're all very, very different. So make sure you configure your calculator. So therefore, the pit is 11.5 feet deep. And that is it. Now, I know this lesson continues, but we're going to save the rest for tomorrow. So until next time, go Sabres.